Hey, I'm here with Dangerforce 5 from Sacramento, California, United States. And I think this interview has been like a year in the making. And I'm actually very excited to have them on. And we recently had on their rehearsal video, which everybody loves. So welcome to the show, guys.
Hi, thanks for
Hello.
having us.
Thank you.
Totally, totally. Tell me a little bit about what you guys how you guys came together.
This band sort of came together originally with me and the drummer, Lawrence Herman, who can join us today. We had been working in a few different projects starting back in 2016. And we did a couple of tribute bands, which were new experiences for us, and that was good fun. And then sort of the second one of those puttered out, and we weren't doing anything. And I got a call from Lawrence saying, "Hey, I've got a guy over here, and we're playing some jazz numbers. Do you want to come over and jam?" And I don't play jazz. I like it, but I'm traditionally I've come from a full rock and roll background, primarily punk rock. And so I didn't really know what to think about that, but I thought, okay, well, hanging out with Lawrence is always fun. So I came over and we were just sort of puttering around trying to figure out what to play. And I said, well, I do have this one surf instrumental that I've written recently. Um, and that was our song Open Sky. And so that's sort of where it was birthed out to. I've been wanting to do a surf band probably since about 2008, 2009. Um, I was going through a sort of a difficult point in my life where I just decided to escape into the whole Tiki culture, exotic and surf scene.
Nice.
And that really, really helped me. It's like when my mom was dying, it really helped me through that point in my life. I built a whole tiki room in my house. I went full bore on it. And originally, it's like in their building and everything, and I would put on, well, what do you listen to while you're doing this? So, well, Exotica, so Martin Denny, Arthur Lyman, Gene Raines, that whole group. Well, that's not quite enough. So, what else do you listen to? And so I brought out my old, Ventures CDs and my Dick Dale albums I digitized and started adding to that and just sort of got back into surf. It was something that I always really enjoyed going back to my childhood, but it was never my primary, focus. But it was always a constant. It's like, these are great tunes, the Shadows, the Ventures, like all the classic groups, the Shantays. This is just great rock and roll music. And, sort of at that point, I got a sense, well, would it be possible to do something like this? This is so far removed from anything I've ever attempted, musically before. Would this be something that's possible? And I really didn't think so at the time. And so, that night when I got together with Lawrence and we were jamming on this tune, it's like, okay, well, maybe this is possible. And that was about like 5 years ago. And so we've gone through a couple of false starts. But the lineup that we have now with Dar and Kevin has been together for about 3 years. And it's just been endlessly fun and rewarding, and just, musically exciting. And, we just try to do things that are fun and sort of the motto of the group is, whenever we have an idea and we go, well, we can't do that because that's stupid. Like we basically go, oh, that's why we should do it.
Awesome. 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 Well, that shows your background in a great story of how you guys all got together. But it sounds like I'm getting a hint of like you guys were all friends before this in some in some.
Well, no, Lawrence and I had known each other for years and years and years. I played with him in high school and then he moved away and then hooked back up with him, right about, I think, 2014 or 2015. When we originally started out, we had a different guitarist, we had a different bassist. And the bassist just wasn't like on the same track that we were.
Okay.
He's a good bassist, really good bassist. He plays in a different surf band. Great guy. It's just, yeah, he just wasn't working. His availability wasn't really working out.
Oh,
So I was at a Surfer Joe show in Sacramento, and there's this tall dude standing next to me, and I'm just sort of noticing through the show, we're enjoying the music, and I'm just noticing that he's just fully into the music and like doesn't care who sees how much he's into it. Like, just fully unabashedly like focused on what was going on stage. And I just like took a mental note. He's like, I knew Dyer through friends, and he was in a really good Sacramento band at the time. Uh, and sort of took note, well, if we need to bring somebody else in on bass, I think he's the one. And it's actually the night that it went down with our original bassist where he wasn't going to be continuing with us anymore. That was like, Lawrence is like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, there's this guy Dyer. And like within 10 minutes, he was in the band. So things sometimes turn out. Kevin's actually our third guitarist. And he was a friend of Dyer's. And Dyer had sort of been recommending him for a while when we were having, again, availability issues with our other guitarist. And it was sort of, well, okay, is he sure he wants to do that? Because surf is a real specific thing. And it was funny. We got the statement from Kevin saying it's like, yes, I want to do it, and I hereby promise to be a dedicated student of surf music if we do this. And he has lived up to his word very much. And contributes
absolutely.
a lot to the songwriting and just um, brings a lot of craziness to the stage, which is great. Because I mean, that's the whole thing about this project has been coming from a punk rock background with a lot of angst and a lot of like seriousness. Is like this is just the complete opposite, where we
Yeah.
just want to have fun and just to, you know, if you'd asked me when I was 18 years old, you're going to be 50 years old and you're going to be in this party surf band thing. It's like I would have said you're crazy, but here we are.
Well, I like you guys, and a lot of um people who play surf music come from a punk rock background. Um,
Well, it's roots music. I mean, punk rock
yeah,
and surf music, or it's both forms of roots
yeah,
music ultimately. And that's why you'll see a lot of people like, also like in the Americana country,
yeah.
uh, honky tonk thing who are punk rockers, just because it's sort of the same
Yeah,
pure vein of
like
music.
Hank 3,
Yeah,
like a Hank 3 kind of thing.
yeah,
Yeah, but like also like in the 90s you had like this the surf revival, the punk revival,
yeah,
then like
yeah,
a lot of like rockabilly and big band, all that stuff was happening. And like I think and I spoke to somebody yesterday, is like at that time all the same people were going to all the same shows.
yeah.
So if you were a musician, you could have wound up in any type of band at that point. So I totally get where you're coming from.
Yeah, and again, a huge part of why I'm here and what we do actually influences what we do, or sort of your uh surf adjacent bands like from the punk scene. I mean, obviously Agent Orange,
Yep.
um, just a huge influence in like, sort of again the sort of the first reminder of like, like when I was getting into punk rock, going like, oh yeah, I remember the surf music here, really. These guys are doing it, but it's punk. So that's a ton of fun. And a band that people really don't consider to be surf, but I very much do, just because of the backbeat of that band, The Descendants.
Oh, totally. Bill
I mean, Bill
Stevens.
Stevenson is like, lays down some of the best surf beats like around. And
Yeah.
we actually have a song where we sort of pay tribute to that.
Oh, what song?
It's Paddling Out. Christmas means nothing because we don't have our recording out.
Oh shit.
But you can look on the video. So we do have a ton of videos out. We're a year and a half later, still working on our release. So
Do you have that on YouTube?
yeah. It's if you go to the Dangerforce 5 YouTube channel, there's multiple live recordings of us playing that.
Oh, awesome. I'll put that
That's
the link to that.
very much was a Descendants influence tune.
I'll put a link in the description to that. To your YouTube page as well as your Bandcamp in the description of this video. But I must say, All is my favorite band of all time.
Oh yeah, I've seen
And
them a bunch of times. Like,
yeah,
they're amazing.
and that's why I always kept the connection to surf music because of Bill, you know?
Well, I mean, that's how they started out too. I mean, if you
Yeah,
look at the single was Ride the Wild, and I can't remember what was on the B side, but these were essentially surf tunes
yeah,
with
yeah,
some vocals, but still. I mean, and just that whole Southern California scene.
yep,
And I don't know. I mean, doing surf music, I feel very heavily that like, I very much buy into the whole like California mythos.
yeah,
And I mean, we pay a lot to live here, but is still worth it to a certain degree. And that's part of it. And you being in a surf band, you really get to celebrate that. I mean, this is music that was invented here,
yeah,
by Dick Dale and a bunch of teenagers in Southern California in the early 60s. So
yeah. Kevin, tell me a little bit about your musical influences and how you contribute to the band.
Okay. Um, I started playing guitar because of, funny enough, I saw the movie La Bamba
Oh yes.
with Lou Diamond Phillips, and seeing Brian Setzer do Cochrane was one of the reasons why I wanted to pick up the guitar.
Oh yeah.
Many years later, I got into post punk. I got into guitars that were more about textures and were more about droning notes. I was influenced greatly by The Edge from U2. Later on, Andy Gill from Gang of Four,
Oh my God.
Bernard Sumner from Joy Division and New Order. So a lot of that music, a lot of that guitar playing kind of dictates how I add guitar parts to the band. I'm also a huge fan. In the 90s, I got into Japanese rock music.
Oh.
Uh, there's a Japanese gothic punk. They're more indie now, but at the time they were more of a gothic punk band, and their rhythm guitar player was known for playing arpeggios, like really clean chorused arpeggios, against some really distorted guitar riffing. And so that's kind of that really feeds the DNA of what I contribute to Dangerforce, especially when I play a lot of rhythm guitar. It's more about how can I add sevenths, ninths, thirteenths, kind of the upper chord extensions. That kind of lends itself to a lot of different harmonies, a lot of different, like I said, textures. Um, I also spent a little bit of time in the harsh noise scene here in Sacramento, and finding ways to manipulate and completely destroy my guitar signal is kind of also something that I like to bring to the band because it's something different.
Hmm.
It's something really different, to you what you would consider to be like surf music. So when we're playing like festivals, when we're playing lineups that tend to have a little bit more of a traditional lean or bend to it, when we step out and we're using pedals, or we're using, for example, the stage or my trem bar to just kind of rake the strings, it's something that really stands out, and it's a lot of fun for me. um I spent almost 2 decades in a band where I would rip strings off of my guitar halfway through the set because as I would say, I don't need them anymore. So next, I would, our last song, I would play on three strings, and I would randomly turn the tuning peg, so whatever tuning that's in is whatever the crowd gets for the next 10 minutes.
That's awesome.
So, it's that devil may care, fly by the seat of your pants kind of thing that luckily everyone in the band has been okay with me bringing to
Yeah.
the formula.
Very early on, we sort of discovered that, like, as much as we love the trad surf sound, and as much as we do try to honor it in a lot of ways, it's like, that's not probably what we're going to end up being, ultimately. Our sound's a little bit too aggressive most of the time. I mean, you just really can't take that sort of like 80s influence, 90s influence out of it. That being said, it's like, you look at a lot of the bands of the 90s and, beyond up to the present day. We just played with Daikaiju,
Oh.
and they're way heavier than we are, but I mean, it was a good match. It was a really good match. Like
Awesome.
we go, okay, let's take our hard set, and we're gonna come out there and we're not gonna talk, and we're just gonna destroy. And we did, and it was a ton of fun. So I mean, we don't like rules, basically.
Yeah,
And
awesome.
another way we brush up against the whole trad surfing is like, we like pedals. He designs pedals. He builds pedals professionally.
Oh, awesome.
And, you know, we like, we just don't like rules. We like to be able to do whatever we want. If there's something that I can do that's going to do something to my sound, that's going to bring out, an emotion that I want to exude, then we're going to use it. I mean, and I don't really actually see a problem with that going back to traditional surf. If you look at the ventures, the ventures used everything that was available to them. And if, I mean, they one of the first instances of heavy fuzz on a track was from them. So I mean, yeah, the whole you're not supposed to have anything other than like a reverb tank, which is essentially an effect uh,
Hmm.
that we never really bought into. So I mean, kudos to those people. I like that,
Yeah.
people keeping things pure and everything, and it's a wonderful sound. But I think we've gotten a lot more comfortable as we've learned to lean into what
Yeah.
we're good at and what our sound is.
Well, I
So
mean, there are plenty of fans doing the traditional thing, so it's
yeah, yeah. And there's no way to compete with them either. It's like that was sort of what it was. It's playing with, a bunch of bands that do that, and they do it so well. It's like, I don't want to waste my time trying to emulate something that's not already coming out.
yeah.
Uh, and we sort of did that at the beginning. We were like a mellower band when we started out. Um, but essentially, the moment that Kevin came in, he started writing, and even before that, some of the stuff that I was writing, it just was sort of leaning away from that. And at the same time, we still reserved the right to write mellower tunes. I just wrote my first sort of spaghetti western tinge
Oh,
tune, and that's
awesome.
so.
Nice.
So
Uh,
basically, we're just not into rules. Like, it's just the broad band tent of circus, or circus tent of surf is what we're going to stay under. But there's a lot of room to do different things within that playground.
very cool. Dyer, I don't want to leave you out. So, same question to you. Tell me about your musical history and how you influence your sound in the band.
I wouldn't even really know where to begin. I bought my first bass guitar in the early 90s. It was at the music store that was next to the record store I worked at. It was it's a fly in my ear, but it was a Hondo Rickenbacker copy for $200.
Good old Honda.
And back then, I was probably my biggest bass inspiration at that moment was Morris Gibb from the Bee Gees. So
Okay,
the
yeah,
early
yeah,
stuff, like from 67 to maybe 73, 74, the pre-disco stuff.
yeah.
And I saw that, and I knew he played a Rickenbacker, and I was like, I want that, because prior to that, I was messing around with guitar for a bit, just starting out, not very good or anything like that, and never took any lessons. But back then I was inspired by bands like ELO and Queen, and then adjacent stuff to that, like Beatles and British Invasion stuff in general, and then other things that I had either heard on like oldies radio or found on CD compilations, stuff like the Ventures, the Shantays, Dwayne Eddy, Link Ray, and stuff like that. But trying to think, like, because I didn't play bass much in the 90s. I was mostly playing guitar. And then it was probably maybe 2005 or 2006. I joined a friend's post-punk band in Sacramento on bass. And, because I also loved a lot of post-punk bass, post-punk and new wave stuff. Stuff like New Order, Susie and the Banshees, Cocteau Twins, stuff like that. Just to fast forward a bit, prior to joining Dangerforce 5, I was in a band called Gamma People. It was Sacramento based, kind of surf influenced, early 60s. Had a female singer, really good singer. Had a lot of fun playing shows, making our own music. And I was playing bass for them, and mostly just drawing on general influences, but probably mostly, that early Bee Gees stuff, Dave Clark 5, Small Faces type thing. And when I was in Gamma People, we played a show in Davis, where Dangerforce 5 was on the bill too. And I saw them, and I was like, this type of music, I would totally be into playing stuff like that. And I don't remember how much later it was, but Gamma People sort of had I don't know, the singer and the drummer were a couple, and they had like a bad breakup. So the band kind of fell apart. And the singer, Amanda, she wanted to sort of continue with a new project. So I think it was like the same night that Dangerforce 5 parted ways with their bass player. And Lawrence, the drummer, he texted me asking if or was it Lawrence that?
Yeah, I think
Lawrence
so.
that texted me.
I don't know. I was
But I
pretty
think it was
dejected.
the
It was a
same-
very dramatic
Yeah,
night.
it was just a coincidence, because I think Amanda on the same night had contacted him asking him if he wanted to join the new project.
The
sequel to
Sacramento
Gamma
scene
People.
is so small. It's pretty incestuous, like basically.
So, yeah. So I joined Dangerforce 5, and prior to that, I had never known how to play more than maybe like 10, 12 songs at a time. So it was like, okay, I have to learn, luckily all the covers that we do were songs I was familiar with, just
Yeah, you came in
listening.
strong. Like I don't
So I just had to
remember
learn
there
how to
being
play
a
them.
huge issue. There's like we were learning, we were getting 2 or 3 songs. Because that's one of the really interesting thing about this project too is it's been we decided early on it was like we were going to try to be sort of a two-headed monster where we could play the 45-minute long or 40-minute long club set of all originals, but that we could also go out and do the brew pub or something like that for a 3-hour set. I mean, these coming from a punk rock background, playing for 3 hours,
Yeah.
it's a different world. And so yeah, I remember Dyer coming in, and I think at that point we had a 2-hour set ready, maybe more. but you were like plowing through like 2 or 3 songs a week for, you knew most of those songs, and that made it a lot easier.
Yeah, it really made it easier just because I was familiar with the songs, even if I never had learned how to play them, or never imagined that I'd be playing them. It made it a lot easier to learn the bass lines to them.
Although I will say, it's like, I think the first song that we jammed on was an obscure Tornado song, Riding the Wind.
Oh, yeah.
Riding the Wind is basically Telstar Part 2.
Okay.
It was written that way. It was like it was literally written that way as a follow-up to Telstar. So a lot of the same motifs, but not as many people are familiar with it as obviously like Telstar. It's like everybody knows Telstar.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I remember us jamming on that, and just that was a track that I had wanted to do for a while. And like you came in and said, "Oh, let's do this." I was like, "Oh yeah, this is gonna be great." And that was like when I knew it was gonna work.
Awesome.
And that was just a blast. So
Yeah, I love those weird, like, kind of spacey Joe Meek instrumental type tunes. It's fun stuff.
I mean, that guy was amazing. Just like, the amount of technical innovation that he did, and also just like coming from like really not a very musical background, just being able to. I don't think he played anything, but I don't know how he would write. And he wrote Telstar. He wrote a lot of those Tornadoes, like most of it, right? So I mean, really, really interesting guy, and a tragic end, but really interesting guy. And yeah, whenever we could play a Tornado song, we throw it in the set.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you guys so much for making the time and being patient with, I know we were trying to get you on before, and very excited to have you on today. And it was great to hear your story. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for making the time.
Oh, thanks a lot.
It's our pleasure.